Welcome back to this Real America's Voice news break. I'm Terrence Bates. The flies are probably gathering on the wall of the Oval Office as we speak, as President Trump will host New York's mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani this afternoon. The president's schedule says the event is closed to the press, but we're hopeful that it does open up so that you can see and hear what the duo talks about. Today's meeting will bring together two men who are virtually on opposite ends of the political spectrum, as Mamdani is widely considered a communist, despite calling himself a democratic socialist.
For tens of thousands of New Yorkers, this meeting is between two very different candidates who they voted for the same reason. They wanted a leader who would take on the cost of living crisis that makes it impossible for working people to afford living in this city. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda that benefits New Yorkers. If an agenda hurts New Yorkers, I will also be the first to say so.
Today, by the way, will mark the first time the duo talks face to face. With the midterm election on the horizon, Republicans are getting a breath of fresh air from the state of North Carolina. Several U.S. House districts drawn by North Carolina Republicans in 2023 have just been upheld by a panel of federal judges. The judges rejected accusations that the voting lines were created to weaken the voting power of Black Americans and Black voters specifically. However, the trio didn't rule on charges that North Carolina's 1st congressional district was specifically drawn to unseat Democrat Representative Don Davis next year. The ruling comes just weeks before candidate filing for next year's midterms opens up on December 1st. North Carolina's ruling is a bit of a good news for Republicans after a federal court blocked Texas from using its new GOP-drawn voting maps in an effort to shore up the Republican majority in the U.S. House next year. Now to new information on that deadly UPS plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky. Federal investigators are out with brand new photos showing one of the plane's engines starting to detach from the plane before the wing catches fire. They also say there's evidence of cracks in the left wing's engine mount before takeoff. That's a quick check of your headlines.
The Great Reset stops here. The Charlie Kirk Show.
All right, welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. We're going to tell you about Hillsdale really quick. One of Charlie's absolute favorite things in the world was Hillsdale College. He called it the beacon of the North, the best university, best college in the United States. And if you go to Charlie for Hillsdale, I just love it. It says, learn like Charlie did. Charlie took 31 of the Hillsdale online courses. That's 31. I think it was basic. When he got to 31, it was all they had. Now they have 40. They have more than 40. And they have a new one on totalitarian novels, taught by the legendary Dr. Larry Arnn, who has been with us recently in this studio. He talks about the totalitarian novels, 1984, Brave New World, Darkness at Noon, and That Hideous Strength. In that course, you get to learn about these novels that were written in the 1930s and 40s, but they are more relevant today than ever. You know, we're talking about Mamdani, the rise of communism, the rise of Islamofascism. And they are extraordinarily important because they're going to come to us through a different iteration in this day and age. They show us, these novels, they show us that faith, family, friends, and this country are still worth fighting for. Maybe you read these books long ago in school. Maybe you've heard others talk about them and they seem a little intimidating. Let Hillsdale College and Dr. Larry Arnn make the most of them for you. Go right now to charlieforhillsdale.com to enroll. charlieforhillsdale.com right now to enroll. They got so many good things. Constitution 101, C.S. Lewis on Christianity, the Federalist Papers, Introduction to Aristotle's Ethics and How to Lead a Good Life, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope. They got so many good online courses. You got to check it out. charlieforhillsdale.com. All right, joining us now is Josh Hammer, senior editor-at-large, Newsweek, host of the Josh Hammer Show, and he has a new piece out this morning that is fascinating and near and dear to Charlie's heart, and that is a question that he spent a lot of time thinking about and talking about in his final days. What is an American? Josh Hammer, welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show.
Andrew, it's great to see you, my friend.
Yeah, you too as well. So Charlie used to talk about the difference between a paperwork American versus a real American. And we were still sort of working on our working definition of what it was. I don't think we had settled the story yet or settled the debate internally, but we definitely knew that paperwork alone did not make one an American, at least in an important sense of where their loyalties are, where their values are at, even where their language is at. Yes, there is a piece of paperwork that will infer your legal right to be here, to vote in our elections, that sort of thing. For our audience, Josh, define what the difference between the paperwork and a true American truly is.
Well, Andrew, I'll do the best I can. I'm not sure that I have an elevator pitch kind of 10-second answer to that question, but I will do the best I can. Let me take a step back and say that this whole debate kind of reminds me of this piece that I read from a University of Virginia political science professor named James Caesar many, many years ago. He was talking about, because, Andrew, as you know from my previous appearances here, I'm also a lawyer, so I think a lot about the separation of powers, the Constitution. And Professor Caesar has this notion where he contrasts a literal violation of the separation of powers in a black letter Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 of the Constitution sense versus kind of a more political violation of the separation of powers. So his point was that you could, even if you're not technically violating the separation of powers under the Supreme Court precedents or whatnot there, you could spiritually violate the overarching tenor of our separation of powers that is ultimately our number one safeguard for liberty in this country. So that's kind of the analogy that I take to this what is an American question, which I wrote about today and was really kind of prompted by Zoran Mamdani coming to visit Donald Trump. Is he an American? All these folks who are in Dearborn, Michigan, who are chanting Allahu Akbar, death to America. Is this what it means to be an American, right? I mean, all sorts of just crazy, crazy stuff. And the most recent allegations of the fraud in Minnesota when it comes to the Minnesota taxpayers being the number one subsidizer of Al-Shabaab, the formerly Al-Qaeda offshoot, now independent Sunni Islamic terrorist organization in Somalia. All this stuff, I think, really raises this question that, indeed, Charlie was thinking a lot about in those final months. It raises it to the forefront. So the paperweight definition of being a citizen, that you are born or naturalized into citizenship, is necessary, but it is hardly sufficient. It is not sufficient, I think, to be an American in the sense of the term that we should think of being an American. An American is someone who is acculturated into the inherited historical traditions, folkways, and general just ways of life of this country. And this country, ever since its founding days, Andrew, has been really shaped by its majority Protestant culture. You hear a lot about the Protestant work ethic, things like that there. And, I think about my own ancestors, right? My own ancestors, Jews from Eastern Europe who came during the Ellis Island immigration wave, late 19th century, early 20th century. For them, it was fairly obvious that you don't just have to become a citizen. You don't just have to learn the language. You don't just have to pay your taxes, do all that there. But you really do have to become deeply involved in the folkways, in the general way of life of the country there. There's something thicker, we might say. There's something morally and historically thicker than just paying your taxes and speaking the language. By the way, a lot of these folks are not doing that. They're not even paying their taxes, speaking the language. But I think for previous generations of migrants, they understood that even that is enough, that you have to really kind of become a full participant in what John Jay in the Federalist number 2, one of the first essays of the Federalist Papers, famously starts writing about how Americans were descended from a common stock and they had similar mannerisms and a similar religion there. And I'm not saying that everyone has to be a Protestant. I'm Jewish, of course, but whether you're a Jewish, Protestant, Catholic, or in theory, potentially, if you're of a different religion there, you really do have to publicly acculturate yourself and publicly assimilate into the Protestant majority inherited culture that goes back hundreds of years, well before the American founding, frankly, into British culture. So that's kind of how I think about it, Andrew. And when I see things like Michigan, what I definitely do not see is acculturated Americanism. But look, me personally, I can be an observant Jew in my private life, which I am, and praise be to God for that. I'm very happy with that. But I am a very fully public-facing American because I fully participate in this country's civic institutions. I am engaged in the act of trying to preserve and conserve our inherited traditions from one generation to the next. And I am deeply thankful, indeed grateful, for this country's longstanding Protestant traditions, which really no one better, I think, embodied than our friend Charlie Kirk.
We argued with Charlie. I remember we had one of our later thought crimes. We had that discussion, it's like, are you basically more American if you are Protestant? And obviously I'm Catholic. Jack was Catholic, but we had that debate because I was like, America really is like, it is a Protestant country. That is what its founding is, that fractiousness, that hostility to a certain level of authority. So even American Catholics are actually a bit Protestant because they're always arguing with the Pope and finding him annoying.
Absolutely. The most Protestant Catholics in the world are American Catholics.
Yeah, it's very funny, and of course you see that all with American Jews as well. They adopted a lot of that, and it's something I think about with the Islamization thing. Obviously, in America, we have the First Amendment, we have freedom of religion, but I've often had that thought: can even the freedom of American Muslims to practice their religion really survive if America becomes too much of an Islamic country? I feel it will lose too much of that historic core heritage.
The historical heritage is, and really the founders of the country were talking about freedom of religion. You know, you could be a Quaker, you can be an Anglican, you can be. That's really what they were talking about.
They weren't even sure if the Catholic part could work at that time.
I mean, we had Maryland, you know, but
not by then.
Okay, but the point is that really that's what they were thinking about. They were thinking about different faith traditions, denominations within the Protestant patchwork, if you will, coming from, you know, Mother England. And I do think that, you know, Charlie said this very clearly. He said, Islam is not compatible with the West. Islam is not compatible with the West. So what do we do, Josh? I mean, you say it really well here. You say you kind of reflect on Dearborn. And you say the United States was never a blank slate society. Like any nation, has a distinct inheritance. And you say this is the challenge of Dearborn. It is too many distinct cultural communities now reject this framework. So what do we do? Because a lot of these people, we can't denaturalize some of these. We can't strip them of their citizenship. We're still dealing with birthright citizenship, which I think is completely farcical. What do we do?
Yeah, so let me just briefly, before I answer that question, Andrew, echo your point, which is that the American founding was supposed to be a patchwork, essentially, of different Protestant sects. In fact, the original meaning of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, does not mean, quote unquote, separation of church and state. Rather, it was actually just a federalism provision. Congress shall make no law because the states can make laws. In fact, they literally did that for decades and decades after the founding. For instance, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had the established church of Congregationalism until the 1830s. There's many other examples there. So your point is very well taken. There also were Jews and Catholics who were there at the time of the founding. It was definitely heavily Protestant, but Jews and Catholics were very much there. For instance, the no religious test clause in the Constitution, where there will be no test for office, no oath of a certain religion. And that was Alexander Hamilton's work. He put that in there. The historians typically say on behalf of his Jewish friends and colleagues there, that some people debate that, but there was definitely an element there of trying to look out for the Jews and Catholics. So they were definitely there, but it really was this Protestant patchwork. So your point is very well taken. Look, Charlie is essentially, or he was essentially correct that Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. I define Western civilization, Andrew, I define it as the ecumenical biblical inheritance. Now, there is a role certainly for Greco-Roman reason. There is a big role, frankly, for Greco-Roman reason. But when we talk about what the West is at its core, it is the outgrowth of the Bible. It is the outgrowth of the two biblical religions of Judaism and Christianity. That is how I define the West, and that is how I conceive it. So is Islam compatible with that? Well, at a theoretical level, no. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, frankly, that it is not. Islam has been at war with Christianity and obviously Judaism in more modern times, but really historically at war with Christianity essentially since Islam was founded. So, I mean, the historical record, whether it's the Siege of Vienna in the 17th century, whether it's the First and Second Barbary Wars under the Jefferson and Madison presidency, there is a long historical track record evincing that Islam is not broadly compatible with Western civilization. Here's what I will say. Here's the caveat to that. That is not that blanket categorical statement is not to say that there are not individual dispensations. That's not to say that each and every individual Muslim cannot be a good American. So Abe Hamida right there in Arizona, Judy Jasser also in Arizona, any number of other individuals I can think of. There are any number of patriotic, great American citizen Muslims. But at a categorical scale, no, I do not think Islam is compatible with Western civilization or, frankly, with the American.
So what do we do? Do we stop mass immigration from Islamic countries?
So stopping mass immigration, I think, is the lowest hanging fruit. We should obviously do that. Personally, Andrew, I actually subscribe to a short-term, full-scale immigration moratorium, period, full stop, end of story.
Amen.
But definitely a moratorium when it comes to every Muslim majority country.
I want a 10-year moratorium. That's what I want to push. There just doesn't seem to be an appetite for that yet in Washington to even address the legal question. I mean,
there's not. I mean, Trump, to his credit, got behind this with the Raise Act back in his first term.
Yeah,
had
Tom
Senator
Cotton. We had a lot of issues with Tom Cotton, but Tom Cotton was right about the Raise Act, and it would have. I guess it would. Remind me of the details. It would have been like 50%. It would have been 500,000 green cards a year, as opposed to 1.2 that we do now, and it would have been merit based. Hang right there, Josh. We got to take a quick time out here. I'm going to tell you guys about Good Ranchers. The good folks at Good Ranchers, they're running a special with the holidays coming up. Here's the deal. Good Ranchers is 100% American. What is an American? What is American meat? Well, Good Ranchers has only American meat, raised on local farms and ranches, delivered right to your door. Truly incredible quality. I'm a subscriber, and the benefits are amazing. You get $25 off every box, free shipping, and a free gift in every order for life. You get their chicken thighs, bacon, Italian sausage. You can swap the free meat gift each month, so you can try something new each time without, having to purchase it. And if you're worried about committing to a subscription, don't be. You can pause it at any time. With the holidays right around the corner, this is the perfect time to start your subscription. This is the kind of gift your friends and family are going to love, and they're actually going to get excited about. So please consider going to goodranchers.com. Order by December 1st. Use the code KIRK, and you get an extra $100 off your first 3 orders. This is their best deal ever. So goodranchers.com, promo code KIRK. Ben and Corley are amazing people. Support their business as they support America. We'll be right back.